Hello, Anton. I'm awesome, thank you for asking. Can you hear me okay? Yep, I hear you just fine. All right. Okay.
I hope so. Can you hear me? For some reason, I don't get emails from this platform. So I don't know if it's Teams or what, but I just never receive them. They're not in my spam. I just don't get them. I don't know if there's some account conflict or something. I mean, my main email is normally used for Teams, but for some reason, I just don't get emails. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I need to disable it actually. Can you hear me? Yeah, yeah. I'll disable it.
Hi everyone. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
because it's a from the audience. No, sorry, from the panelists. We'll have some quick introductions. Then I'll ask my panelists about their main do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage product and tech. And then we will start taking some questions. In terms of the questions, the best way to do this is for you to drop your questions in the chat. We'll then give you the mic, and then we let you speak and ask your question with whatever you basically want from our panelists and whatever you need them to answer. If you are on the live streams, though, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do want to ask anything to our panelists, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. The best and quickest way to do that is to go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. You click, so scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 168. You click join, it's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your website, and then through that link, to your email, gets you a link to your email, and then through that link, you can tune in to our call here on Microsoft Teams. Now, being audio only is great because it means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. And once you're here, again, just drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and then fire away with whatever questions you have. If, by the way, your questions today are not on product and tech, then please save them for your other sessions that we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, as you can see today, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. On the second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And on the third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And they're all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And now, without further ado, some quick introductions from us. My name's Anton Cole. I'm an Albanian in London, working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups, as well as some accelerators. And I help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and their assessments. And without further ado, I think we can go on to Chris, then Dan, then Eugenio, and last but not least, Mario, please. Take it away, fellas.
Thanks, Anton. Great to meet everybody. My name is Chris Bracegirdle. I am a technologist, data scientist. I have a machine learning PhD. I have built various products and companies over the years, including a data analytics business that we exited to Rightmove a few years ago. My current project is called Foretell.ai. It's a voice AI platform helping all sorts of customers all over the globe get communication sorted with their end users. Great to meet everybody, and can't wait to answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Dan Cohen. I'm currently serving as Chief Product Officer of Zen Educate, which is an edtech business based here in London, serving teachers and schools up and down the UK and in the US. I'm some 27 years in tech now, worked for Microsoft, Amazon, and some smaller startups, and also at BCG Digital Ventures, a venture studio and incubator. Great to meet you all. Looking forward to your questions.
Hi, I'm Eugenio Galioto. I'm a fractional CTO, agentic engineer, and serial founder. And I spent the last 12 years building startups in London and the Bay Area. Also led the teams at different companies across US, Europe, and Australia. And I currently build agents along with that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tomic. I'm Croatian living in Spain. I help non-technical founders with technology as a fractional CTO, help them building their products, hiring developers, managing developers, hiring agencies, firing agencies and developers, and all in between. Happy to be here and looking forward to hearing your questions.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate you joining us today. I guess we'll just go backwards on the same sort of route that we followed. Some do's and don'ts. I'm sure you've seen some bad and good stuff out there in terms of what founders do early stage when they're building. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So maybe we can go with Mario, Eugenio, Dan, and last but not least, Chris. One do and one don't each, and please don't use the same logic for both. Let's hear what your thoughts are on that. Mario.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Well, I mean, don't expect it to be easy, right? And technology is still complicated, and there's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to take into consideration. So don't think it's gonna be easy, but do pick whatever gets you to the goal sooner, because when you're just starting out, speed is your most precious asset. So getting sooner is time is basically your most valuable thing to optimize for. So getting it sooner is more important than anything else. So whatever gets you there sooner, even if it's not ideal technologically, it's probably a good choice for you at this early stage situation. I think we lost Anton here meanwhile, but yeah, I think
No, we haven't lost Anton. I'm still here. I'm waiting for Eugenio to go. And then after
okay.
Eugenio, we've got Dan, and last but not least, Chris. Okay, I think we've lost Eugenio, so perhaps we can go on to Dan and then Chris, I think. Yep, Dan and then Chris, please.
Sure. Well, do's and don'ts. Speaking more broadly, don't assume that you need to do something until you really, really need to do it. Don't plan ahead. A person of a lot of smart people, and I do see a lot of smart people make this mistake, is to plan ahead and think, well, what could possibly go wrong here? And let me get ready for that eventuality. Fix the problems that are right in front of you. I like the Eisenhower matrix as a prioritization method for that. If something is both urgent and important, you do it. And if it isn't, there are states to choose to what to do in those if you just Google Eisenhower matrix. And then in terms of the do, I mean, I would say this because I have a product and marketing background, but talk to customers. Building something, solving a problem in your life that you've seen or in your work that you've experienced can sometimes blind people to the fact that they may see things differently to others. So seek diverse perspectives, especially about your idea and your solution to the problem that you think you've identified.
Thanks, Dan. I think some really good advice there. And also from Mario. I'm going to slightly tweak my answers to this question because I think you've already heard some of my sort of default answers. So what I'm going to say is when you're writing code and developing, do use some of the AI coding tools that are out there if you haven't already looked into them. I mean, you could start with some really quick vibe coding to get some rapid prototypes out, but there are also some really good structured tools that can help you really ramp up the efficiency of your software development. And in terms of don't, I would say, and this is kind of a repetition of what you've just heard, don't build if you don't need to. Often there's lots of ways you can get products off the shelf or get different tools or features off the shelf without building them. You should really focus building your core IP, your core secret sauce. Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Let's see if Eugenio has joined. No, he hasn't. All right, well, I think we can maybe go on to our first question. Just a quick reminder then before we go on to questions. So again, you have joined Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 168th session. We've been doing these now for about 4.5 years, and the idea is quite simple. We're here to help startups like yourselves with whatever questions you may have in terms of your your early stage product or tech. So those questions can be on anything from let's say product roadmap to your design, to your prototype, to your launching your MVP or testing or anything really to do with your product or tech. This is the place to be. We are, however, only going to be here for the next 44 minutes. So if you do have any questions, please do feel free to join us here on Microsoft Teams live, because we can't monitor any questions you may be asking via our live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. And the quickest way to join our Microsoft Teams call is to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. You find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 168. So just scroll down a little bit on our page, startuptoscaleup.club. Once you've found Startup Product and Tech Q&A 168, click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can join our call, which is an audio only call, meaning you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. Once here, you can then simply type your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, and then you can ask our team anything to do with your product or tech built it, and then they'll do their best to answer it based on their amazing background and experience. If your questions, by the way, today are not on product or tech, please save them for the other conversations we run. Mondays is talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month UK startup law, and third Friday of each month UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and they're all available on our website, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, why not also join our WhatsApp community? We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, operators, and of course, our brilliant panelists/mentors. Now we'll go on to our first question. I'll put that in the chat for the panelists, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. And by the way, panelists, if you'd like to, please feel free to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat in case anyone wants to reach out to you later. And the first question is a cybertech founder in Leicester, pre-seed, and she used to be a cybersecurity consultant. The problem is developing an app that helps consumers monitor and protect their personal data from breaches. So that's the problem she's trying to solve. Then she goes on to say, we want to build a user-friendly personal data protection tool, but are unsure how much we should explain the technical aspects of data protection to users. Should we focus more on making the app simple and automatic, or should we give users detailed control and insight into how their data is being protected? How do we balance user empowerment with simplicity? I think this is a really good question. How about this? Let's start with Dan, then we'll go to Chris, and last but not least, Mario, please.
Thanks, Anton, and thanks for the question. This is a topic close to my heart. The product I work on has a huge variety of users, some of whom are very technical and some of whom have never used technology before and are special education needs teaching assistants, for example, some of whom are very techy, some of whom have never touched a computer. And with us, we try and walk a very fine line between onboarding our users through a complex process, which is, government mandated ID checks and so on and so forth. So similarly technically complex to what data security might deal with from a user perspective. and also trying to get people through that process as fast as possible with as high a success rate as possible without befuddling anybody. One of the things that our application at Zen Educate does is give users an initial opening question that helps set the bar a little bit. You also see this design pattern when you're looking at making personal investments to assess whether or not you are, quote unquote, a sophisticated investor or not, which, as I understand it, is a technical term, which precludes you, if you're not, from making certain types of investments. We just ask people upfront a relatively technical question, and if they are comfortable and able to answer it, we modify our user experience to be more detailed, more granular, more technical. And if they don't, or if they ignore or skip it, we insert training material into the onboarding flow. So some videos, some explainer content, and we make the step-by-step guides that are presented inside the product, the content inside the product, more verbose, more long-winded. So that's a way that we found to balance both getting the data we need and also optimizing for completion success, but at the same time figuring out whether or not this person is able or willing to engage with a level of training and education about the process that a more sophisticated user or more experienced user might not need to. This is a fascinating topic. There's plenty more reading on how to do this. As always, I can recommend Marty Kagan's Inspired as a book, which is well worth reading on the topic of how you get people through complex processes or design user interfaces for outcomes in mind. And in regulated environments or in complex environments, that's gold dust, well worth a read.
Thank you very much, Dan. We'll then go on to Chris and Mario. And if you like, Eugenio, since you just joined, if you'd like to read the question in the chat and if you'd like to answer it too at the end, please feel free to.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Porca troia.
I'll go ahead and answer.
Eugenio, we can hear you, Eugenio, including the swearing. Go on, Chris.
Thanks for that answer, Dan, as usual. So when I read this question, I was kind of thinking, are you talking here about the privacy of your own app and explaining that to users, or the privacy, I guess, is the features of your product? Now, I'm going to assume you mean the second, but it may mean
that's my assumption too.
Yeah.
Based on what they said, that was my assumption.
Yeah. So I think my advice would be focus on what the consumer is getting out of your app, and so I suspect that's going to be about understanding my privacy position and my privacy risks, and what I can do. So the sorts of things that I would be looking at are the individual rights, and explaining to the user their individual rights under data protection legislation, and helping them to exercise those rights. So my inclination would be to focus on automation, make it very simple, but make it very clear what I, as an end user, am going to get out of using your application. What is the benefit? I think, like any product development process, the key thing is to talk to your users and see what feedback you can get from them. In an ideal world, you would have a set of users who are able to do research sessions and explain to you their feedback. As ever, those research sessions can only be so big in number, and unless you have many thousands, it's hard to get anything sort of statistically significant from a research point of view. But nevertheless, I think you can get some really useful feedback. So aware that I've talked for ages already, but just to reiterate, I would focus on what the individual is getting out of it. And for me, that'll be about individual rights, and ensuring my right to security and deletion and correction and all the rest of the individual rights.
Thank you very much for that. Mario, it's your turn. And then if Eugenio is audible and is able to read the question. If not, I'll repeat the question. I'll put it in the chat again. Mario?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it quite well here, but yeah, for sure. I mean, if end users are involved with technical terms, it has to be very simple, you know. So that's, you know, perspective is product question more than tech question, but you know, something very green if everything is good, and something, you know, being red if not good, like to the point of triviality, really. You know, because it's very hard to communicate those things to the, you know, which we should steal from Hollywood how they do it, right? So, you know, they have a good way to explain those very complex technical terms to general population. Sometimes it looks ridiculous, but it's because we kind of deep into it. So, you know, when you see, you know, on metrics, those running letters, is like, what's going on here, right? But then that's how people understand it, you know. So definitely, and it's very hard. Like I struggle with that daily to when you're very deep into a product, to get that interface out that it's really easy for people to understand. And that's, you know, that in itself is you know, and when you get good designer, again, you get good UX person who's able to kind of translate that complex message to users. That's very rare to find. That's gold, right? So, you know, we really don't have a choice, because people are not going to use it, you know, if it's even remotely complex. So I mean, that's just reality of the general population and the software at this moment, I think.
Fair enough. That's a very good point. Eugenio, did you manage to read the question?
Yes. So
Yes,
the first point
good
is
man.
that what is about the user. So in general, it depends on how much you know your users and how much you know you should provide to them. The how is the design part, the UX UI part, and generally I will start with what, and then I will find a way to place it elegantly. Imagine that there's the difference between, for example, Badoo and Tinder, you know, the swipe mechanism, which is way easier, way better, you know. That's a UX UI thing. But about what, it's clear that you have to show some information that can be the photo and of course your interaction with that photo. So this is the flow I will follow. Start with your users' knowledge, what they really need, and then place them in a really elegant way.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. I think it's time we go on to another question. Now, this is a bit similar as well in terms of the design, mind you, but hopefully we can try and find something here as well. So I'll just wait a second. I'm just copying and pasting that here, and then I'll read it out loud for the live streams. The Tech for Neurodiversity founder, he's in Nottingham, pre-seed. He has child psychology background. So what they're trying to do is to create an interactive app that helps neurodiverse children learn social cues through play. We're trying to balance educational content with engagement in our app. Should we invest in high-quality animations and games, or focus on educational theory to guide content? How do we ensure that the app meets diverse learning needs whilst remaining enjoyable for all kids? This is a tricky one. You see, as the father of a neurodiverse child, I can see the value in that. I can also see the major risks, because often, whilst neurodiverse children can be quite good at tech, also for them to engage can also be quite tricky through tech. Personally, I would focus on engagement rather than educational, because once you manage to get engagement, then you can start sneaking in educational stuff. But on the other hand, probably let's talk to a child psychologist like yourself, somebody who's got more experience than you do. But let's see from a product perspective, and also maybe, taking into account how easy on the tech side of things is to implement that product perspective. So maybe we can start with, well, let's go to Eugenio, then Dan, then Mario, and last but not least, Chris. What are your thoughts on this, gentlemen?
I would say both, in the sense that if, so it needs to be enjoyable, but it needs to provide value. And so it's just about doing both the things at the same time, because these two functions in the end are not mutually exclusive. You can have one logic behind the educational theory, and you can have very great animations created by very good animators. And in the end, once you do that, it's easy to integrate that. So maybe the two things can even be like, can even enforce each other. So I would not say either or. I would say just both, because being kids, both are needed essentially.
That's a great answer, and I would build on it by saying, if you were to take two perspectives, the first one being the best practice standard product development answer, which would be something along the lines of, you should A/B test that, and start small with an experiment that would give you confidence to further invest in that content type. The fact that it's neurodiverse children or younger people really doesn't make any difference to that best practice. And then there's the domain expert answer, which is, I also am the father of a severely autistic child with learning difficulties, and have worked in neurodiverse education technology for most of 2025 before I took my current role. What I would say is that once you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. Neurodiversity is a huge spectrum, and different conditions, sensitivities, vary wildly in terms of what one child will accept as a learning aid and one will not. A good example of who does this well is Yotoplay, which is the screen-free storytelling set of cards and books and devices and audio cues. I think the meta point from across both of those perspectives is to experiment. Don't deeply invest in anything until you know that it's going to have the desired result. And I'm sure you have a very diverse set of customer or user segmentation in place. I would use that segmentation framework if you have it, and if not, please do develop it, to run those experiments within, to ensure that you're getting the right content type for the right audience. But I would also underline the previous point, which is that these two things are not mutually exclusive. And Anton, I think you said something similar, which is, if they're having fun, then learning is possible. If they're not having fun, brains are closed to learning. So I would always err towards have more fun than not.
Thank you for that. Mario, it's your turn, buddy. And then Chris, please.
Yeah, I think, I don't have anything new to add to this conversation, so I think we can just move on from my perspective.
Yeah, this is a really difficult question to answer. In the end, I think, as you said, you need to do both. I think what I think would be my driving, my North Star in this project would be engagement, and getting your users to engage with your application repeatedly. So I'd be thinking about how best to achieve that, because at the end of the day, that is what's going to make your app sink or swim. So I would be focusing on that. And if that's about an animation, great. I think there are lots of other things it could be about, including, can you gamify your users in some way? Can you send the notifications at the right time, some nudges to bring them back? So that's what I think I would be trying to focus on, and measuring myself on is repeated engagement, and holding myself to account on how well I'm getting people to come back to my app over time. I definitely think you can integrate more educational theory as you go along, but if you can't get people to come back, your app's just not going to work either way.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. We'll now go on to our third question. Again, quick reminder to those of you that are on the live streams, this is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 168th session. We've been doing these for 4.5 years. And we're here to help startups with whatever questions you have on that journey of yours as you build your early stage. And by the way, questions can be on anything to do with product and tech. So whether it's your product roadmap or design or prototype, landing pages, apps, testing, MVP, automation, full stack, low to no code, and anything else in between or beyond for that matter, this is the place to ask it. We are, however, only going to be here for the next 24 minutes, and we are unable to monitor any questions on the live stream. So that whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams in order to ask questions to our panelists. The quickest way to do that is to go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. You scroll down a little bit, you'll then find Startup Product and Tech Q&A 168. Click join, it's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can tune in here. Being audio only means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. Once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat, we'll give you the mic, and then you can fire away with your question. If your questions, by the way, today are not on product and tech, and save them for the other conversations we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. All from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP and register to any of them via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. And by the way, when you're on our site, why not also join our WhatsApp community? We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators, and of course our panelists and mentors that you can tune in and both connect and learn from. Now, I'll read out loud the third question, but it's in the chat if the panelists want to read it. So our IoT startup in Belfast is building a platform to monitor energy consumption in households through smart devices. Well, another one, okay. With the unique requirements of IoT data, such as low latency and high reliability, we're struggling to decide between a cloud-centric or edge computing approach for our tech stack. Could you advise on the pros and cons of each, especially with respect to scalability and potential regulatory requirements? Do you hear me? Definitely not for me, but I'm sure the four musketeers we have today. So we'll maybe go on to Mario, Chris, Dan, and last but not least, Eugenio. Let's try and keep it about a minute each, please, fellas.
Yeah, it's a good one, and you know, as it goes, like the best answer is depends, right? So it depends on the deployment size, and is it is it millions of households, is it thousands, is it so if you're gonna edge computing, mean that there's some devices there in everyone's home, kind of offloading a bit of that connectivity and other issues, right, that you might have if you need to stream directly from from device itself to the cloud, right? So it really much depends on what kind of deployment size are we talking about. So it's very different. Is it hundreds or is like millions of devices. So it will be like not
Can I
serious
interrupt, Mario?
Mhm.
Mario, I'm really sorry. Taking into account that they've asked us, I doubt it they're in millions now, but I'm sure they are hoping to get to millions. So maybe if we can think in the sort of the tens and maybe a couple of hundreds rather than the million. But again, I know it's wrong for us to make assumptions, but that's what happens when you can't be bothered to join us live.
So for hundreds, probably we're talking about cloud solution, right? Something that will be just just drop it there and they just stream directly from the device, right? Instead of having some sort of processing or whatever on site, right? For those like smaller deployments, that's probably easiest to set it up, easiest to deploy, easiest to manage, easiest to everything, right? Then probably talking about cloud deployment for sure, because all those cloud providers, they will have their own frameworks and tooling for getting the data out from those small devices, right? Right now I'm working now with a client, and we do fleet management, right? So there's small trackers in cars, in like rental companies and so on, and we monitor as they move, as they go, geofences and so on, right? It's all kind of coming from like small trackers you install in the device, and kind of streams through GPS and SIM card. It streams data every 10 seconds, minutes, whatever, right? This is a bit more complex in terms of data of frequency of sending the data, right? But and with cloud setup, it's all good. When it comes to very huge deployment, then it becomes complex, right? And it becomes costly first, right? Then you need to figure out some other, and where edge computing, in my opinion, comes into play. So that's my 2 cents on this one.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you,
I think there's some really good advice.
Chris, go ahead, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, I think some really good advice from Mario there. I'm going to give you a slightly different angle. This is mainly coming from someone who has, over the years, invested money as a consumer in various different smart devices for my home. I think that for the consumer experience, it's much better if it's processed locally, and that's for a number of reasons. Obviously, latency is something that you've mentioned in the question, but also I'll mention the outage impact. So I had a very sad day yesterday when basically nothing was working because of an AWS outage. But also, there can be much more localized problems around Wi-Fi connectivity, or what if Virgin Media's chopped the cable in the street? I suppose the downside of doing everything locally is potentially higher cost, and then how do you manage any OTA updates that you might need, and keep those devices up to date? So I suspect that, from the consumer point of view, it's better if it is managed locally in edge devices.
So I would build on that. I mean, I'm much more a product person than a technologist, so I can't really talk about the technical trade-offs, but from a user and from a business model perspective, I've built several devices that are similar to this in my time, both for fleet management, for home energy consumption, specifically while I was at BP, and also in highly regulated environments where, the choice of signal because of safety was a concern. If this is for consumer households, which I think it is, and it's to do with energy consumption, which I think it is, the device's bill of materials is probably the primary concern. Consumer implies scale. Obviously, getting to scale, is the main challenge of any startup becoming a scale-up. I would be asking the question of our product development teams, well, what is the likelihood of connectivity being a show-stopping thing? Do I require the household to have connectivity, or does the device carry its own connectivity with a SIM or in some other way, not rely on the household being connected? Of course, that dependency is still there on the public network. versus what is the high bill of materials cost of putting all of those things into the device. If your target customer is a tech-savvy person who doesn't mind a bit of configuration and probably has high-quality Wi-Fi signal everywhere in the house, that's a very different answer for cloud versus edge, based on what you might need. And then I guess the other thing is the low compute requirement for calculating home energy usage. In everybody's home, there is something recording energy usage already. I mean, I might be asking the question, are assumptions good enough, or is there an API that I can call centrally rather than relying on the house to give me that piece of data in the first place? If the value is being created by tracking the home, that leans you more towards edge. And if the value is more generated in giving an approximation of what your bill will be, there might be other ways to achieve this which don't require IoT devices. So I would start from first principles and go, what actually is it that we're trying to achieve here? And then think through some of the implications of cost and product experience.
Here, thank you very much. And last but not least, Eugenio, please.
So it really depends on the use case, of course, but I will start with the cloud and then will extend to the edge only when it's necessary. There's different reasons behind this. The first one is that the edge may not be necessary. So you say, yeah, the data is local, whatever. But the truth is that that is not necessary at all. So you need to measure how necessary this is. The second thing is that when you want to deploy a new version, when you want to do refactorings or change whatever, it's way easier to do it on the cloud rather than on the edge. Because, of course, on the edge, you need to deploy this firmware across many different devices that may have different versions at the same time. They may, they may have many things happening that can be, of course, tricky to maintain depending on the size of the company. So in the end, you want to minimize all of this to what's really needed. If it's energy measurement, that is, I would say, non-critical case. So I would rather keep it simple.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Thank you very much from all four of you. Really appreciate that. We are 13 minutes away from wrapping this up, so maybe we've got time for a couple more questions. I can see my other gadgets pinging, so it's probably people trying to get our attention via the live streams. Again, you'll need to join us here live on Microsoft Teams if you've got any questions. We're here to help you with your product and tech journey and build in that early stage. So whether you've got questions on product roadmaps, designs, prototypes, testing, launching your MVP, or anything and everything in between or beyond for that matter, this is the place to ask it. But you'll need to join us on Microsoft Teams. Best way to do that is to go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit. You'll see Startup Product and Tech Q&A 168. Click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can tune in to our call. Once you're here, drop your question in the chat, we'll give you the mic, and then you can ask our panelists whatever you like. I'm going to read this out loud for the live streams, but the panelists can read it in the chat. I'm one of 3 co-founders of an early stage deep tech startup in Oxford that's developed a wearable for athletes. Our current firmware drains battery life too quickly, affecting usability. What are best practices for designing firmware with power efficiency as a primary focus? And how can we test our firmware under various usage scenarios to identify and fix power-hungry processes? Interesting. Maybe we can start with Chris, then Eugenio, then Mario, and last but not least, Dan. What would you do here, gentlemen?
Well, we've had some really interesting questions today, and this is no different. So thank you very much for the question. It's a very difficult one to answer without knowing exactly what your wearable does, what sort of devices, what sort of sensors you have on board. I think, well, there's no doubt you need to get into the depths of profiling and optimization and knowing what's consuming the CPU cycles. I'm sure you guys are highly capable and know what you're doing, but I think you need to focus on reducing ongoing processes, keeping threading to an absolute minimum, and if you have tasks that could be batched and done at a later time, then just store that data and process it later. So as I say, without knowing a great deal more about the wearable, I think you need to really focus on making the firmware as thin and as light as it can possibly be. And then, as you say, test and finding ways, whether it's different rigs and harnesses for your device, or if you can monitor the usage by running it on a different device. You need to be testing very significantly, I think, under different scenarios.
Thank you very much, Chris. And just before I go to the others, we keep receiving questions like this, and we are grateful, but seriously, a question this technical, and I get it, people may have all kinds of reasons not to be here, but at least if you don't want to put your name and your face out there, join the bleeding call and just message in the chat privately, because it's not easy to answer such questions and be helpful, or as helpful as we'd like to, if you're not here. Anyway, sorry, rant over. Next, please.
So a couple of considerations here. The first one is that you want to choose the right programming language, because MicroPython, for example, may take more energy than C or processing. So this is one thing. The second thing is about the power consumption in the sleep mode. So you want, of course, but even actually in the normal working mode. So the key point is that you want to reduce the clock of course, of the processor. So you may want to consider a smaller microcontroller, and you want to use a coprocessor, for example, for like power-hungry processes. So you may have two microcontrollers. The first one that may be a base one, and the second one may be a specialized one. And the specialized one may be idle until you ping that from the base one and you pass any data needed, for example. Of course, today it's possible to do stuff like that with Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and so on, but inevitably they have a lot of processes that are not efficient at all. So you want to reduce the complexity of the chip and maybe reduce, like split into different chips. And one consideration about the power is that also the battery over time gets worse. So the more the power consumption, the easier that battery, of course, health gets worse for many reasons. So you definitely want to simplify.
This question is probably a bit more technical than I'm qualified to answer, so I'll probably pass on delving too deeply into it. The only thing I would say is that the athletes probably have a very slim set of use cases that you're building for, and so just look for extraneous functionality that you don't need on the device from a product standpoint, and really get crisp with what it is you want it to do and what's critical and what's non-critical, and just simplify the experience.
Thank you very much. And just before we go to Mario, I've been getting quite a few of such questions similar to this, but unfortunately, being as tech ignorant as I am, I try to avoid sharing them. But if either of you techies have anything you want to share, like articles that people can get, thank you, Eugenio, that people can get some idea or some kind of overall guidance on this, please feel free to share it on LinkedIn. So I've tagged all four of you panelists on the live stream. So please feel free to share it there, and hopefully people will read it. But if anything that you can find, I think, because I'm getting a lot of these similar questions. So anything you can share, kind of overall guidance, would be useful. Sorry, Mario, go ahead, buddy.
I mean, it's very hard to say anything, right? Because very little context there, right? You know, what is deep tech, and you know, whatever deep tech is happening there, it cannot 100% happen on the wearable device, right? So the device needs to process the data somewhere else. So is it a phone? And most likely it's going to be a phone, right? You know, so it's going to be, you know, something that just collects maybe, and then, you know, data crunching is happening elsewhere, right? And you know, because you know, those devices, whatever you do, and obviously, you know, you want to do it in low level languages, you want to do this and that, but you know, those devices are small, they have small battery, they have small chips, meaning they cannot do a lot of things, right? And so you need to do those stuff, you need to offload them, right? But I mean, if you really aim for this project, you really start doing something like that, all that we said here, you know, they're just kind of generic question that anyone, you know, oh well, of course I did try that, right? So without more context, it's really hard to say anything specifically. But generally speaking, yeah, what the guy said, right? Move processing elsewhere, remove what you don't need, you know, and those things are, you know, just small devices on a small battery, because they have to be light and whatnot. So you cannot do a lot of things with them. So, you know, you cannot build I mean, they are computers in a way, but they're not very powerful ones, right? So, and generally speaking, yeah, we need just more context for some of those questions, because, you know, it can be whatever, and you know, we don't want to all put our consultant hats and say just it depends, right? Because oftentimes that's the best answer, no?
Obviously. No, thank you very much for that. That's really appreciated. We've only got 4 minutes to go, so rather than just copy and paste questions that were sent in, I think we can wrap it up. Maybe some do's and don'ts. Sorry, some parting words, rather, my bad. Some parting words from yourselves would be appreciated. So I think it was it Dan who joined first, and then Chris, and then Mario. So maybe if we can go in that order. Any parting words you have? Eugenio had to leave earlier, so Mr. Cohen.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the questions, everyone. Please do keep sending them in, and I hope to be back another time to answer more of them. Parting words from me: focus, focus, focus. Startup to scale up is you've got a thing, you kind of make it work efficiently, make it work well, make it work cheaper. These are the guiding stars, and if you're doing anything that isn't one of those three things, you probably should ask, should I be doing that?
Thanks, Dan. Some great advice there. I think Dan's right. I think some thoughts from me would be keep it as simple as you possibly can. Always, always, always be talking to users and potential customers. Those are the people who are going to tell you what to build and whether you've got it right or not. And finally, I would just say keep going. Building a new thing is hard work, and well done to you for doing it. So give yourselves a pat on the back and keep going.
Really good ones. Yeah, I agree with this, and you know, it's going to be more complex than you think, and you know, you need a good problem to solve, because a lot of problems, well, a lot of easy problems have been solved, right? So we need to find a hard problem to solve for technology, for new projects, the biggest issue I have with the startups I work with, especially those early age ones, like they just started, is actually finding anyone to use it, really. You know, so you spend 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to build it, and then nobody cares. And I've seen that a lot of times. So don't be that guy, you know.
Me and my fat thumbs. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate your time and input today. You're now 1 minute away from wrapping this up. So I guess just before my parting words, 2 quick things that matter to mention. Number 1, we run 6 regular sessions helping founders on your journey from startup to scale up. We only bring people who've been there and done it to help us answer any questions you may have. And we tend to cover 6 general topics. On Mondays, it's talent. So finding and keeping the right people. On Tuesdays, as you saw today, is building your early stage product and tech. Wednesdays, which is tomorrow, that's go to market and selling basically, and anything related to that. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. So we often run out of money. How and where do you find that money and how do you go about it? And then once a month, every second Friday of the month, we run a UK startup law Q&A. And every third Friday of the month, we run a UK startup finances Q&A. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can register to any future session via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, startuptoscaleup.club. And when you're there, you may also want to join our community on WhatsApp. We've got some interesting groups of founders, investors, operators, our panelists and mentors, of course. And I've actually put we've created a group specifically for product and tech where you can send questions ahead. You can ask for help, post Q&A. You can discuss any topics we touched on. Of course, you can connect with each other and all that jazz. So that's a WhatsApp group specifically for product and tech that I put in the chat here. And as far as my parting words, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, please do join us here on Microsoft Teams instead of the live streams tomorrow for Startup Growth Q&A. We've got some amazing panelists that will hopefully seek to help you from 0 to 1 or even 0 to hero for that matter. Thank you very much again. Have a great afternoon and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.